Hey, music lovers and music haters and those who feel indifferent. My name is John. Chances are you probably already know who I am because I'm in everything, ever, always. And welcome to the inaugural episode of The Loft, where we talk about music, life, faith, and how it all intertwines together. I have two special acquaintances of mine on with me for the inaugural episode with our was it a network? Would we call it a network?
Correct.
I think that's
yes.
the word we've been using.
All right. Well, I've got some network friends from the
Culture Box.
Culture Box. Jeez, I am terrible at this. This is all new for me, everybody. So I apologize. From the Culture Box team, hanging out, and I'm probably going to be fired from them by the end of this episode.
Well, I don't know. You have some cozy chairs here. I like this beanbag chair I'm in this loft. This is nice.
Man. And the Christmas tree in the corner by Drew. Never too early to celebrate the birth of our Savior. But I digress. With me from the Culture Box Sanhedrin, we've got the High Priest Caiaphas himself, Francisco. Say hello to everybody, Caiaphas.
Crucify him.
Yes.
We're starting this off on a great note.
I love it. I am here for this 100%. And next to him, we got Drew from the Cellcast.
So I have no good reason to say give us Barabbas. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know that. Like Francisco caught me so off guard with how in line his response was that it just completely derailed my train of thought at that point going forward.
That's why I'm a high priest.
And I'm just a lowly peon.
Hey, everybody needs a page boy. So with that introduction aside, shalom, assalamu alaikum, greetings and hello. Welcome to The Loft. We're going to talk about music and its effect on everybody, because I believe that music is such an individual experience for people, and everybody experiences it so differently that even if you're not into music, there's always going to be some experience that someone has with music that connects us all together. Music's important for me because it is one of the few things that is like that is, in the biblically speaking, is mandatory for worship. Like anytime there is worship, music is always involved in some fashion. So it's spiritual, but it's also personal and emotive. So I get excited about it, and I'm always on the ball to discuss it with anybody. So I'm just going to throw this question out there. Let's get this party started with the most basic question of all. Like, what are you guys into? Like, what do you dig? And you don't have to say specifically Christian bands. That's kind of our preference here. But I mean, if that's not your bag, if there's like some secular bands, like Drew, I know you're into ZZ Top, if I remember conversations correctly.
Why don't I remember these conversations?
I don't know. Am I missing? Did I get a different Texas friend confused with you here?
You might have, because I don't think I've ever mentioned ZZ Top.
Do you like ZZ Top?
I'll be honest. My musical tastes are what would be considered eclectic. Is probably the best description for it.
Oh, there's nothing.
And so a lot of the music I listen to, I find out years later. Oh, that's what that band was that played that song I really like. So you could say, oh, ZZ Top, and I'm going, I probably know a song of theirs, but I couldn't tell you I couldn't point to it, So that's about the only artist that I would buy their album unheard would be Weird Al Yankovic, because I think I've bought pretty much every single one of his albums about this point.
Yeah. I think everybody has. Well, let me hang on to that thought, because I want to circle back around to that. But I'm very curious about talking to Francisco about music, because I think I've had instances where I've demonstrated to people that you can learn a lot about people by their musical preferences. And Francisco is somebody that I've been eager to dissect. So, Francisco, what are you into, sir?
Oh, now I'm under the knife. Oh no. I think
which is a great song by Twisted Sister, by the way.
Twisted
Under the Knife. Twisted Sister, my dude.
Who's that?
That's the guy that from never mind, that joke's dead. Anyway,
Francisco.
I was gonna make a joke from Flight of the Navigator because that's what
what's her name?
The band What's Her Name liked?
Yeah.
Francisco Ortiz Valdez. You are old enough to know who all this is.
I know who Twisted Sister is. I'm being ridiculous, as I want to do. So I enjoy, similar to Drew, I feel like I'm pretty eclectic other than country music. I tend to not like anything. I like folk music, but country music, like modern country music, I typically do not like. But I enjoy.
They haven't made real country music since 2005, so you're fine.
Even that is too modern for me. Anyway, for me, I have a range of bands. I like game soundtracks. I will listen to a lot. I like in terms of bands. I like Switchfoot, The Midnight. Falling Up when they were together. Let's see, who else do I enjoy? Those are, I guess, those would be the main bands of any notoriety.
I'm just going to say that it fills my heart with great joy, Francisco, to hear you say you like The Midnight. I know we've had that conversation before, but it's just hearing somebody talk about retro wave and stuff like that. It lets me know I'm not the only dweeb out there who misses the 80s.
Yeah, no, I definitely do. Which is interesting because I didn't really care for 80s music back then. I had listened to more Motown when I was growing up. I think that's just because that's what my parents listened to. Mm-hmm. Whether it's like Johnny Mathis or the Supremes or whoever. But so that'd be my I was gonna say amuse bouche, but that's not the right word. What's the thing with the
repertoire?
Crackers? Oh no! As a that's my charcuterie board of music for now.
Right. I got you.
You're lunchable.
I'm smelling what you're stepping in, bro. So it seems like between the two of you, then, like the common theme here is kind of a. Like you guys seem to connect on the level of like older country music. Like I know, Francisco, you said you don't like modern country. Is that to state that you do enjoy older country, or is that to state like you just like country, but very specifically?
That's to state I like Johnny Cash, and that's about it.
Okay.
Johnny Cash, while his country, he's like edge of country of that era. So
then that's as much country as I like.
Because he's like right there. He's not really on Southern rock, but it's like feels like he's like flirting with it a little.
Well, he's more flirting with the rock and roll of the time. Like it. Like did either of you guys see the movie?
I mean, he toured with Elvis, for crying out loud, in his early days.
and Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis. So, and actually, like I was about to bring up, according to the Johnny Cash biopic, it was Jerry Lee Lewis who got Elvis and Johnny Cash hooked on the meds back in the day.
Oh, was it? Was that the one? Walking Tall, that one with Joaquin Phoenix?
No. It's
Walk the Line, not Walking Tall.
That's it.
Yeah,
Walking Tall was a Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson movie.
Yeah,
very similar to a Johnny Cash biopic, in my opinion.
You know, I would like to see Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson play Johnny Cash in a Johnny Cash biopic. Can you imagine that?
That would be interesting. Can
you smell what the cash is cooking?
That's the question, though. Could The Rock sing?
Yeah, he's in Moana and sings "You're Welcome."
Hey, you have a point there. I didn't think of that. That's really more though of a talking and rhythm, but still.
My dude, you just killed me for a second because you said that he was in Moana, and I'm like,
I mean, he is.
I know, but I thought he said he was in Awana, and that just blew my mind entirely. And I'm like, I want to see pictures, or it didn't happen. Like, I need to see young Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in an old Pal's uniform. Someone put that across my desktop, please.
The GIF army is on it, I'm sure.
So that being said, so going back to the classic music. So you don't like the older other country stuff. Like you're not into like Hank Williams Sr. or Conway Twitty or Waylon Jennings then, or
I've heard the names, but I doubt I would like the music.
What about Charlie Daniels?
Nope. Don't know who that is.
You don't like Devil Went Down to Georgia?
That's more of an oldie in my book, so
it's technically country.
Okay, well, fine then.
Well, here's the thing though on that, Drew. Charlie Daniels was one of those guys who kind of walked the line between country and rock and roll again.
True, but let's be honest, the genreification of music is messy in general, so.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of cross-pollination. I mean, there's a reason why abominations like Cowboy Troy exist, is because we don't selectively breed our musical genres.
Once again, that's after country died, but anyway. I'm sorry. I have an opinion that they haven't made real country music since 2005. It's not saying there's not quote unquote country songs from that era I like, but let's face it, after that point, it turned into twang pop.
I will say this, Drew. Country music, I don't feel is dead. I think that it merely has done what all great music does and went underground.
Well, then let me rephrase. It's not dead, but is very much unconscious.
Could be.
You know what's interesting? I feel about the same way as you do, Drew, about modern movie score music, that it's on life support. There's nothing hummable anymore. It's all just like ambient droning music or poppy, just like let's have something underneath what's going on screen. There isn't really anything except for like musical movies where it's like, obviously that's a big part of the movie, but just general, there's no, especially for more like blockbuster-esque movies, the score is just like, I guess, yeah, there was music, I remember it, but it's not hummable at all. And I feel like that died out in the mid 2000s.
I would agree with that. Yeah. I mean, you don't have, like, I remember back in the 80s, man, like I would go to school humming, like you could daydream about being your favorite movie hero at that given moment. And there was a theme you would hum, you know, you had the Star Wars theme, or even like
Indiana Jones
Batman
or
89 had its
Ghostbusters.
own theme.
I mean, it's,
the last one of those big movie franchise themes I can remember is the Avengers theme that Alan Silvestri wrote, but I can't even hum that for you at the moment. So
I was about to say,
that's the closest thing.
You don't have kids. You don't have those movements, those soaring movements for, like, how many themes, how many score themes can you hum from the Star Trek scores? Not Star Trek, Star Wars.
I was going to say,
I can answer the question with Star Trek, actually.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm much more of a Trekkie than I am Star Wars fan.
But I mean, even still, you got the opening theme. You got the March of the Empire,
Imperial March, yeah.
Right. I mean, there are so many different themes throughout that entire series that people are like, oh, that's from Star Wars, right?
Yeah, like, and then you get to the sequel trilogy, and it's like, I don't really remember any songs from that,
except for the ones that John Williams originally brought
for the other movies.
Yeah.
And I'd say that's even the case for a lot of the prequel series, except for Duel of Fates, and then Love Across the Stars or something like that. Those are pretty memorable, but he sort of tapers off in episode 1, 2, and 3, I feel.
Well, that's around the time, though, the focus with movie scores was moving from...
Yeah, exactly.
I would hate to say in-your-face themes, but from the old way of doing it to these just ambient background noise.
Exactly.
The background noise is really not fair either, but still, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's nothing that you can take with you, like John was saying, to school or to work and be like, okay, I'm gonna get this done because I'm Batman now or whatever. Yeah,
I mean, like, you could do that far better with video game scores, ironically, at this point.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Yeah. That is very true. But the thing about it, though, is video game scores have to be catchy, and they have to be memorable, because it's the music you're going to be listening to for 80 hours plus.
That's very true.
Whereas you can put up a boring score for a movie, and as long as it's there to fill in the silences, you don't notice the lack of it until you start thinking about it. You know what I mean? And this is kind of getting off the topic of music a little bit and dipping into movies, which I do on a different podcast called The Bottom Shelf. Go check it out now. Uh, but I think it kind of comes down to this whole idea behind cinema that what happens on the screen is really the only important part of the experience, and a lot of everything else is getting kicked to the wayside. Like not only just the movie score, but what like movie poster art or movie box art. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because they've gotten very lazy with that too.
All they have is just a couple clips of people who are in the movie huddled around, and that's it. Like,
dude, they're all the posters are floating heads.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, when Drew Struzan does that for the Indiana Jones thing, it works, but still.
But like the last time I saw a movie or a movie art that I felt really demonstrated that the people who made the movie cared about the full experience of the movie beyond just the movie itself is a while ago now, but it's still fairly modern. You guys can Google it if you want to, but it's an independent horror film called The Drownsman, and it harkens back to movie box art from the early 1980s and late 1970s. And I just to me it doesn't feel like the attention to the full experience of the movie beyond seeing it itself is really out there anymore. Like there's packaging and other things that go along with the movie experience I think has gotten cheap. And I think a lot of that comes from digital distribution.
Yeah,
it's the contentization, if that's a word, of media that's been plaguing us for the past 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we're probably not past yet.
It's less about consuming. It's more about consuming content and less about having a shared experience with others, I feel like.
Right.
Or just telling a good story.
Right.
Yeah, putting out a good piece of art. It's just more of, it's the McDonald's Happy Meal of stuff instead of like good steak.
Right. And I would to bring it back around full circle, that the digital distribution has done that to music in the same way. And you will never see like megastar musicians ever again because of digital distribution. Like the biggest bands, like when I say the biggest bands, it's the first band that comes to mind when I say that.
Unfortunately, Taylor Swift, which I hate that that's the case, but I feel like that is.
Okay.
Like modern?
Just the biggest band
Weird Al.
I'd say Metallica's pretty big.
Metallica.
Yeah.
Weird Al works. Taylor Swift works. You could say bands like the Rolling Stones. Any of those bands, we will never have that happen from going forward in history. Those big, let me rephrase that. You won't have the big rock bands. The pop acts, yeah, they'll be huge, but they're going to be come and go. But the big arena experiences, like going to see Kiss live in an arena, or bands like AC/DC or stuff like that, you'll never have that again because of digital distribution, because the marketplace, for the good that being able to have instant access to music as an art has brought, the problem is that it has also devalued the art in and of itself, because it causes oversaturation and inflation. Basically, it works the same way as currency does. If you oversaturate your marketplace with what you have, then there's no demand for it.
Well, I could see that being the case for a decline in like physical media sales, but why would that decrease the band, like going to see someone live experience, like the desire for that?
Because it decreases the value of the band in and of itself. Bands, the whole live experience, that's paid for by creating hype through your album sales. So it all comes down to, you need the album sales, because basically what the album has been reduced to through digital distribution is basically an advertisement for a live event. Because the majority of the money that happens, like say for instance through platforms like digital, like Amazon or anything like that, where you say, I want to buy that album digitally, about 95 to 99% of that transaction goes to the record label or someone else other than the artist. Usually per dollar, the artist gets about a fraction of 1 cent from each transaction you get off of digital distribution. So what happens with that is they don't have the ability to reinvest into doing these giant stage performances or some kind of artistic feature to demonstrate that. So you're not going to have big bands like Kiss or whatever that's all about spectacle and rock spectacle being able to get out there and put these shows on. Or if they do, you're going to have inflated ticket prices like we see as well, where it's $300 to go see a show. Whereas back in 1976 to see Kiss live, it was like $750 for general admission.
$750? That's even worse.
No, $7.50, my dude.
Oh, that's better.
So I don't know. It's good. It's good to get, but in the same sense, like the distribution of media digitally helps people on the lower end because it puts them in the same marketplace as anything else. So you're going to be able to be on the same shelf as bands like Taylor Swift or movies like, for some reason, Jaws is coming to mind, but whatever, you're going to be able to put yourself out there and market yourself along there. But the problem is, so does everybody else.
Yeah.
So everything's diluted.
It's hard to stand out then. Yeah.
So it's weird to think about how, as a consumer, we love digital distribution, but in the same sense, it's also killing the same thing that we say we love.
Here's the thing. Digital distribution does make things easier. Like, half the movies that we review on the Cellcast, I would not be able to review it if it weren't for, being able to watch it on streaming service. But at the same time, if I could, I would do physical media for pretty much everything. But there's no place I can easily go and rent these things, and I can't buy every movie that I want to watch. So even though the quality is always better with physical, it's, you kind of are stuck.
No. And the other problem is, and this is something that Dallas has pointed out on other Geek Devotion shows, is that when you quote buy things digitally, you don't own that.
You're buying a license to.
You're basically leasing it.
Technically, you are also doing that with physical media, but it's with it that license lasts as long as you own the disc.
Right.
With the streaming stuff, you could lose that at any time.
Right. That was kind of where
they don't have to warn you about it either.
Exactly. And that was kind of where I was going with that. And you see that in the video game world as well, which is, I know that all three of us are involved with on some level or another, is that excuse me, I got a cough. It's starting to become a big issue within the video game world as far as being able to preserve the history of the art itself, because it's all dependent with digital distribution. It's all dependent on whether or not those servers stay up and they're able to maintain having the gold copy,
Yeah.
And so
well, even then with updates, like if you own a physical copy of a game that was put out this year, you may not have the version that is like the version that most people played at release. You have whatever version they were able to put on the disc, and it may still be buggy as all get out because they have no reason to finish the game, quote unquote, by the time it goes gold. They just have to have it finished by release date, which is what, 3 months usually. I think on average,
because they got the post production.
Yeah. And it's not like there's no reason for them to stop it at that point anymore, because those programmers have to do something to stay busy until the next project comes up.
Right. So that's interesting. What do you think about that, Francisco? Like, where do you stand on physical versus digital?
I enjoy the I don't know if enjoy is the right word. As similar to Drew, it'd be harder to see more of what's out there. Like, for instance, I'll say it this way. Having something like Netflix allows me to try movies I probably never would try otherwise, to see if I like them. And then if I here's a good example. Like recently, I'll try to spare the gory details, but I watched a movie called "The House That Dripped Blood" or "Dripped Blood." One of those. It's one of those. One of them will lead you to another one that says the house that dripped blood on Alex in IMDb. It's so I forget if it's drips or dripped. The tense
It's
matters.
dripped. I know what movie
Drip?
you're talking about.
Okay.
That's classic schlock.
Schlock. How dare you? I thought it was very well done. But I really enjoyed it. And so it got me interested in seeing other movies from the same production company, Amicus Productions. And so I was looking for other movies to watch. It didn't get me to the point of, oh, I love this so much, I'm going to buy them. But I was certainly interested in seeing more of what they had. And if you can sort of ignite that passion and like, I really like what these people are doing, it certainly would lead me down the path of something like buying, like John Carpenter. I collect his steel books that Shout Factory puts out. And so I enjoy having that physical media. So I think it's a good gateway, but you really have to stand out and be exceptional to attract enough of an audience that will want to buy whatever you're putting out physically. Whether it's movies, probably music is the same way, though I tend to not buy music anymore. Because I mean, I used to buy on iTunes and I liked having that, but then I lost access to that account. So I've lost all that music, and the music I tend to listen to is just whatever I find on YouTube that I enjoy, and I'll just listen there. So,
yeah. And I think platforms like YouTube, when it comes to music, that give you free access to whatever. That's kind of like, as far as like music is concerned, that's like the modern hurdle that was presented by groups like BMG or Columbia House back in the 80s and 90s with their music clubs. For the younger listeners out there, back in the 80s and 90s, there was these things called music clubs where you could buy between 8 to 15 albums depending on the promotion, for a penny. Physical media, just provide shipping and handling, and then you were an indentured servant to that company for the next 3 years. But the problem with that culture of getting all this music for free is that it again devalues the product that you're trying to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I get it, Drew. I get it, John. I'm part of the problem. I get it.
No, it's just they're like, I get why people go onto platforms like YouTube or Spotify and stuff like that, and they want to check out things. The problem is that there are a lot of people out there who never progress from the checkout things because it's always there for free for them to dip back into. And it goes back to the whole marriage analogy of, why would you buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? You know what I mean?
The other problem though you're running into is it's getting harder and harder to find players of anything but MP3s anymore.
Yeah.
So I mean, what are physical if they still made physical albums in the future, what would they be? SD cards?
Oh, I can tell you what it's going to be because I've already been seeing it. You go into any store where people used to buy CDs and you go check out. Yes.
Stealing true vinyl.
Vinyl.
Even in Fred Meyer, which is like a Kroger, they sell vinyl.
I will admit I haven't invested in that because I don't even have a physical like sound system in here outside of a Bluetooth speaker. So
I'll say I want to invest in that, but I just don't have. There's other things I've chosen to invest time and money into. That would certainly be something I would like to in the future, because I don't know. I've never had a vinyl player, and I do really. Here's one thing that is sort of dumb, but I really enjoy about vinyl is the really big art on the sleeves that you get to have. And so if it's done really well, that's really nice to be able to see that artwork really big. And then listen to the music with it, of course, I see something. Oh, Saturday Night Fever. That's what it is. John is holding a vinyl cover. That one's less interesting, but
that's just because you don't like John Travolta.
He's fine. That one's cooler. Hall of Oats?
Hall of Oats.
And Oats.
Hall of Oatmeal? What?
Dude, I am not even that big of a music nerd, and I know who Hall and Oates is.
Good for you, Team Womp Shirt, mister.
Oh, I did not wear this shirt for you.
Yeah. Sure.
Honestly, I wore it because it was clean. Feel free to cut that out, John.
So you enjoy vinyl then, John? I assume.
I enjoy music in general. I hold a very soft spot for vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
Back when I was just a young boy at the age of under 2.
Back when I was a little baby boy.
Yeah,
underneath the
living in a box off the sea. I can't remember the whole thing either.
I don't know what you're talking about, but
Albuquerque from Weird Al's Running with Scissors album.
Peachy. Yes.
Okay. He hates sauerkraut to spoil the whole thing.
Yes. Oh man, spoiled the ending of an 11-minute song. How dare you, Drew?
That they didn't even write all the lyrics into the album liner.
What? Boo.
Yeah, they listed like a paragraph, and that's it.
Lame.
And it starts as like, I really didn't think about how long this song was and how I was never going to have enough room to write this in the liner notes. I wish I still had that CD. I don't know what happened to it.
I thought you bought all his CDs. I
own a lot of his albums, but a lot of them I did not purchase until recently.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
The Running with Scissors album, I was the first one of his CDs I ever got, but I don't know what happened to it, as it's been 30 years since that album came out. Who knows what happened to my copy?
No, that can't be right. It was only 10 years ago at most, I'm sure.
2001, my friend. A long, long time ago.
It was just last year.
Bring it back to Star Wars. It was the one with the Saga Begins on it. In a galaxy far away, Naboo was under an attack.
Don't get me copyright strike on my first episode.
I stopped there. Cut me out if you feel bad about it. I don't care.
But to bring it back to your original question, Francisco, when it comes to vinyl, I have a very personal connection with vinyl because back when I was very, very young, my parents in the early 80s used to sit me in front of the record player with the big old 1970s Koss headphones strapped to my head, and they would just hook me up to records for hours, and that's how they used to pacify me, and I would just sit there and listen to tunes. So at very young and venerable ages, I was listening to bands like Pink Floyd and the like. So I do have an enjoyment for vinyl. I don't listen to it very often. I do have a collection of it. I do feel like vinyl is the future for physical media because it is probably the hardest to create digital copies for and pirate. Although I don't know if you guys are familiar with the platform of Bandcamp.
I'm aware of it.
I do. I used to be really a strong proponent of them, but not so much these days.
I do
not
like
since
them.
Epic bought it.
No, it's I won't go on the story, but I have my reasons. Go ahead, John.
Well, the reason why I do like Bandcamp is because the majority percentage of all sales through Bandcamp go towards the artist. So more of my money is going to the person who created the thing that I like and want to give money to. Also, when you buy physical media via Bandcamp, you usually get a MP3 download of that as well. So you get the best of both worlds where you can have instant access to the music. So it's like having the album, but you can listen to it until you get your physical copy. Or if you're like me and you listen to digital when you're working during the day, but when you're driving around, you listen to physical media.
So it's like Amazon was 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's like how Amazon was before they became who they are now.
Yeah.
For sure, my dude. So
I still have songs that I bought because I bought the albums for Christmas presents for other people that are in my Amazon music list that I have no care for listening for.
I've gotten albums for people who I'm friends with that I'm like, hey, it's a buy one get one free deal because now I have that album too, apparently. But I like a lot of the stuff that I got too because I like pretty much everything except for Cowboy Troy. Yuck.
Anyway,
so, but let's take it back to some personal experiences here because I want to get to know you. Like what's the earliest musical experience that you can remember?
Well, besides singing in church,
I mean, church would probably be the earliest for me.
So hymns like early on definitely are in there, but in
more
terms
like,
of stuff that really spoke to me even at that age,
more like musical appreciation, like not so much musical participation, but like the first eye-opening experience of music. Like, hey, I would like
say,
this.
Yeah, I would say the first song that I probably listened so much that I wore it out on a piece of vinyl would have been Billy Joel's "You May Be Right" from the Glass Houses album. I wore that song out as a child. The rest of the record was fine, but I kept replaying that one song over and over again.
So
I learned how to pick the needle up and move it over.
You were those people who mastered the art of placing the needle.
Oh yes, back when I was 3, 4, 5 years old, I probably couldn't do it anymore.
My dude. What about you, Francisco?
I mean, I have a memory of trying to record, for whatever reason, Red Red Wine on cassette from when it played on the radio. I was waiting. I don't know why or
what
how
song
I would
was
know.
This?
Red Red Wine.
Oh, Red Red Wine. I thought you said Red Rider Wine, and I'm like, what? I'm thinking like the band Red Rider, which was Tom Cochran's first band. But
yeah, him. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I was trying to understand. I'm like, wait, what? But you're talking about UB40 then, or are you going like old school Neil Diamond Red Red Wine?
I don't even know.
Did it have a reggae feel to it?
Yes, it did.
Okay, then that was UB40 doing a cover of Neil Diamond's Red Wine.
Oh, okay.
That's like saying dual rear wheel. It just doesn't flow off the tongue very well.
Mm-hmm. No, it doesn't.
Called a tongue twister.
Indeed. So I remember that Wine Till just listened to that over and over again when I was 11, 12, 13, somewhere in there. I remember dancing to Captain EO's dance, like trying to memorize his dance steps and listen to that when it was on Disney Channel, like the final battle thing that he had. So I remember liking Michael Jackson.
Bro, who didn't like Michael Jackson in the 80s, though?
I'm sure someone didn't
grow up with Michael Jackson on my radio, so I didn't hear him till much later.
So Drew,
I'm being honest.
Didn't like him.
I can't say whether I liked him or not. I'm just telling you that's not what was played in my house.
It wasn't in mine either, but
I think you said you had the Jackson album.
Technically, the Jackson 5 may have shown up on like the oldies station at the time, but does that count?
Yeah, absolutely, that counts, sir. Rockin' Robin's the gateway drug to Michael Jackson's later career.
Yeah, but I didn't listen to any of it. I just know one or two songs that happened to come on the radio. So,
but have you guys heard the new version of that song? It's Rockin' Robin XXX. Get it? Is this thing on?
Unfortunately, it is, Francisco.
Because you don't tweet anymore. You X on Twitter because it's not Twitter anymore.
I got the joke, Francisco. I fully got the joke.
I get it now. I just was not connecting it to modern social media.
You know what, guys? I get it. You need to simmer in that joke for it to really appreciate it. It takes some. I
feel if I were to laugh at that joke, Francisco, would be disingenuous, and I just don't want to bring our relationship to that level.
I don't mind. Go ahead. You're looking like you want to laugh, Drew. Go ahead. You can do it. It sounds like this.
Drew only laughs at his own jokes, sir.
I'm not the social media was the farthest thing from my mind when you started that joke.
Fine. All right. Fine.
So,
well, you know what?
And of all the social media apps, And of all the social media outlets, Twitter and X are like the one I've used the least. So,
all right, when I have a Facebook joke, I'll try again.
Good luck with that. I'm not saying I get that either.
Anyway, so to kind of round it out a little bit, I know that to kind of bring it back to something I said at the beginning of the podcast, where music is the only consistent thing I've ever seen throughout Scripture that is required for the worship of God.
Yeah, I was curious, what verse of I did a search on that. I'm not seeing where it says it's required.
Well, like, no, it's just the common thread throughout Scripture is music has always been integrated within the worship of God, going all the way back to Mosaic law. The people who played the instruments and sang the praises, they were higher up on the echelon. They marched before the army as they went around Jericho. Even Lucifer, his function within the angelic host was as the choir director prior to the fall. So, it's
more Catholic tradition than Scripture, though. I could be wrong there.
Pre-fall Luciferian anything gets a little bit weird because I've seen several sources. So if you ask me if there's scripture on it, if I'm being 100%, I'd have to tell you I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
So if I'm going to be completely honest with you, could be
just throwing it out there, since I didn't remember where it actually said anything about what Satan was doing before, or really what anything was going on before creation. So
right.
He was messing with Job. I know that.
That's technically during creation. So
that's post creation. He's talking pre creation.
Yeah, we're before Lucifer fell. So,
but anyway. I digress. Music's a big deal, is the point I'm making. When it comes to religious ceremony, even beyond the Christian tradition, in other religions, music has always been integrated in that. Can you think of any moment that you would be willing to talk about where you had an encounter with God that was musically related? Just offhand. I know that's a lot for me to throw out there and say it may be personal. If you guys don't got nothing, that's fine. But it's a curious because music is can be such a spiritual experience. It's not really that surprising that there a lot of religious experiences do happen in musical settings.
So my apologies. I kind of missed the question because I was trying to figure out what on earth my above door neighbor was doing that was making all that noise on the ground. What was the question?
What if any experiences with God or experiences in the presence of God have you had where music has been a correlative experience? For instance, I'll give you a for instance so you guys can kind of understand what I'm talking about.
Thank you.
Back when I was in the 7th grade, I went to my very first concert. Newsboys were touring for Going Public with not DC Talk. Audio Adrenaline was touring for
the Newsboys.
DC, you threw me off, Drew.
Sorry.
Newsboys was touring for Going Public. DC Talk was touring for not DC Talk. Audio Adrenaline. Sorry, they're ubiquitous. Audio Adrenaline was touring for Don't Censor Me, and then Eric Champion opened the show. So just to kind of give you guys a frame of mind for when this was, probably somewhere around 94, 95. And it was my first concert, and I was there, and it was a mythical time. It was totally something that created an addiction in me when it comes to music, where I have been chasing the dragon ever since. But they did an altar call, and I had my first experience in the presence of God at that time. Time, and I suffice it to say, through choices that I made later on in life, that experience didn't stick, but I can say that sticks out. That was where God put his finger on me and it's like, okay, this is going to be a thing. And I fell away later on, but he eventually drew me back. And I think that because of that specific experience, I had that handhold to hang on to. You know, do you see what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So like
Mm-hmm.
experiences like that. Gosh, I am so sorry.
No
Experiences
worries.
like that where you were so moved in a musical experience where you had an encounter with the presence of God or something to that effect. Have you ever had that type of an experience?
Um, I don't know if it's quite like that. For me, I know that I went through a really painful season back in 2021, and
Mm-hmm.
there was a song by Switchfoot. They had just released Fading West, but this was their sort of an EP they did called not Edge of Tomorrow. That's the Tom Cruise movie. Edge of the World, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it was essentially songs that were not released on Fading West.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm just looking it up because there's one song that really impacted me. Just there's a lyric in it, and I know Switchfoot isn't. They're they're a, they're a rock band, but they're not a Christian band. I think they tend to make that distinction. Um,
They're Christians in a band. They're not a
Mm-hmm.
Christian band.
yeah, I think that's the distinction they tend to say about
Right.
Yeah,
themselves.
Mm-hmm.
because they haven't been on a Christian label since what, 2001, 2002.
Maybe. Oh, it's Edge of the Earth is the name of the album. And
Uh-huh.
so the song is What It Costs, I believe. And there's this one lyric that just really helped me to understand how God can use pain and can use our pain to experience joy in a very meaningful way. And so let me just see if I can find it. Uh, uh, okay, I think. Hold on. Now I'm second guessing myself. Is this it? Oh yeah. Okay. So this is a pre-chorus, and yeah, this song is What It Costs, and it's but love uses the pain to drill the holes that irrigate our dry and thirsty souls. And to me, that just hit me so deep because there's this element of I'm feeling so much pain, but it can be an act of love to experience that because without that, I'm sort of just dry bones in the desert, like what Ezekiel sort of has this vision of. And it takes God to break through this sort of calloused and this exterior that's sort of numb to experience to realize that I need this pain was important and God can use that to actually bring new life and out of it. So that's how I read into it. I know with a lot of Switchfoot stuff and even the Midnight, there's so much poetry that goes into it that I think different people, based on how they hear it or when they hear it, it can evoke different emotions and different experiences. But that was mine with it. So I don't know if that necessarily answers your question very well, John, but that's what I have.
You know, on a fundamental level, I will say that it does. Because just because it didn't necessarily lead to a moment of salvation or any kind of salvific event, that doesn't necessarily mean that you didn't encounter God on some level with that music. You know, it's sort of like the book of Ruth. You know, God doesn't really show up in that book. Like, there's no mention of him
Mm-hmm,
really
mm-hmm.
at all throughout that entire book. But that's not to say that God isn't in the book of Ruth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
God moves through circumstances, and you know, if God used that to bring you to a place of healing, then I don't see why that can't be on that same level. So, how about you, Drew?
So back in 2005, I was between jobs, but I had already paid to go with the church to the Passion Conference in
Mm-hmm.
Nashville that year. And admittedly, I have never been one to keep up with modern music. I wait till I happen to hear something, and then that's like, oh yeah, I'll buy that album or I'll buy that song, whatever. And so I was fully unprepared when we were there on that last night, and David Crowder band was the one doing the worship set on the last night.
Oh, he's so good too.
Yeah, and this is before he split off and went sang. It was a before he and the band split up. This is still David Crowder, comma or asterisk band.
Yeah.
And this was the year that their album A Collision or 3 + 4 = 7 came out.
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle of that one, there's a song called You Are My Joy, which every time I never caught that was the name of the song, because every time they announced it, they called it the rock opera.
Mm-hmm.
And I was unprepared for when they started playing that song for the first time, and I was listening to it. And for the most part, it's not that complex a song, but you get to the middle where that violin solo starts, and it slowly builds like at the beginning of the solo, it's like they lit a match, and then by the end of it, you've got like the whole place is burning down, kind of, sort of like the fire is growing slowly. And that, I think it was more emotional, I'll admit, than anything else, but it just, that was one of them. That was one of the best. Just listening to that felt like a worship moment.
Oh yeah,
like stronger than I had probably focused on like the rest of the weekend. But
for sure.
That moment, the first time I listened to it. Now, granted, if you're going to go and listen to the song, please get the studio version of the album. Don't listen to the live version, because David Crowder won't shut up during that solo, and he keeps singing weirdly over it. Just listen to just the violin part. The studio album is so much better than him trying to go la la la. Anyway,
no, I get you, man. His last album, that triple album that he put out right before the band broke up, there was a track on there, and I think it was like a 8 or 9 minute track, and there was dueling guitar solos in the middle of it.
Oh yeah.
And when that album dropped and I heard that for the first time, I was like, guitar is my love language, bro. Like, for people out there who don't know me well, I play guitar in a band. So like, guitar is my love language. And when I heard that, and they like, it wasn't even like as a guitarist to speak guitar language, you can tell when somebody is just kind of riffing around on a guitar and they don't really know how to solo. And then when someone's ripping through something, it's just like, you almost use the Lord's name in vain a few times, just as an expression of the audacity of somebody flexing that hard on their instrument. You know what I mean? And it was so close to that level of guitar soloing in the middle of the song that is just amazing lyrically to begin with. I was not ready. So I totally pick up on what you're putting down with that. And Crowder's good for that, because I can't think of a moment where I really felt like any of Crowder's albums were caught lacking on anything.
I think there's some that might be considered weaker than others, but pretty much, you're in for a good time with a Crowder album.
Yeah, it was his I don't know how to put it. Like, every time he'd put out an album, he would release an EP where he would play with the genre of the previous album on some of the songs.
Oh yeah.
Like when he did Illumination, he did the Sushi EP where he utilized techno to remix some of the songs. And then when he did A Collision, he did B Collision, where he did everything bluegrass and stuff.
I had
like
that one too.
And I don't know. I think that became a little bit shticky for me. So like when it came to those EPs, it was kind of meh. But like on the legit albums, I can't say that he ever really made what I would call a bad album. Were you much into the David Crowder band back in the day, Francisco?
Nope. I have some artists that I just don't really care for that much.
Crowder's one of them, huh?
David Crowder and what's his name? Third Day Mac
Powell.
Mac Powell. I just do not like their voices. Some of their music's fine, but yeah, no, thank you.
That's fair. You don't have to like Goat Boy.
Okay.
To be fair,
I guess I won't.
All right. So true story. I have a Mac Powell story. And this has less to do with him and more to show you what kind of kid I was back when I was in high school. But when Third Day was touring for Conspiracy No. 5, that was their second album for you youngsters out there. I saw them when they came through Spokane, and there was a big write-up about them in the newspaper when they were coming through, because it was still the 90s and the Christian music industry was booming. And there was a big section, and it always struck me as weird. Like, they felt the need to say it in there, but they were getting irritated with all the people who were comparing Third Day to Hootie and the Blowfish, because that was another band that was big at the time. And let's face it, Darius Rucker and Mac Powell have a very similar timbre of voice. And so they would get frustrated with that. Well, I had second row tickets to see that concert when they came through Spokane. So me being who I was in high school, in between every single song, I'd be just sitting there like, yeah, Hootie, we love you, and start just shouting out for songs like I Only Want to Be With You and Hold My Hand. And so, yeah, that's my Mac Powell story.
Nice.
Yeah. That's just who I was as a kid.
That's totally fair. Probably to edit up, I'm gonna have to wrap. I'm gonna have to leave soon. So
yeah, I am
gotcha.
too.
No, that's fine.
Ironically, I got to get to choir practice.
Whoa,
my dude. With that being said, then let's go ahead and bring this back down. It's been cool hanging out and chatting with you guys. I feel like I've gotten to know you guys on a different level other than just podcasting and such. Let's go ahead and do some promoting here, because we are all Culture Box. So let's just go from left to right on my screen. Drew, why don't you let people know about your podcast and where you can be found?
You can find the Cellcast podcast wherever fine podcasts are downloaded from, or at thecellcast.podbean.com. And over there, we review animated movies and TV shows. So if you like cartoons, no matter what country they came from, though admittedly we've mostly focused on the United States and a little bit of Japan. I can't think of, we've done a couple things that are other countries, but most of that ended up during Bad Movie Month. Anyway, so yeah, you go and listen to us over there. We just finished with our Studio Ghibli month. So we'll be doing Christmas next, and we just finished with on our animated series segment with X-Men the animated series, and we're going to be going into, of all things, Neon Genesis Evangelion next, which that's going to be a lot of tragedy.
If anybody wants to donate to Drew's tissue fund for all the crying he's going to be doing from watching,
crying maybe not. I just have a feeling. See, I've never watched Evangelion except for a couple episodes. So
here's
my
the deal.
Co-host is forcing me to watch it.
Here's the deal, Drew. I will say this.
I know how that guy can be.
I recently, in the past 2 years, have become a bit of a weeb.
No, and really?
When we had an anime focus in Geek Devotions, me and Squid were originally going to do a focus on sad boy anime, and that was the top of everybody was just like, oh, the two ones that are going to break you, Your Lie in April and Neon Genesis Evangelion. And then Violet Evergarden was the third one that everybody would.
I know it's generally considered I know it's a tragedy, but it's like I don't know. We will see how it goes. I just know I'm stuck with it till March
now. So
it'll be at the end of every episode of the Cellcast until March. So
all right. Well, what about you, Francisco? Not that anybody's going to be listening to anything on the Culture Box Network and not know who you are. But why don't you tell us where we can find your small footprint on the network?
So you can find me and my best friend Paul do a podcast called the Retro Rewind Podcast, where we have rotating guest hosts. Drew and John here have been on it, and we review movies and games that are 15 years or older, sharing what we liked about them, what we didn't like, and essentially rating them classic, nostalgic, or tragic. Sort of letting you know whether or not they're still worth your time today. And remember, Crucify Him, Caiaphas 2024.
Wow.
That's a callback, guys. Is this thing on?
Oh, it's on.
All right.
Give us Barabbas. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. Well, before this podcast gets swallowed up in the earth like the followers of Korah, I'm I'm going to go ahead and sign it off. Thanks for listening, everybody. And I don't know. I don't have a catchphrase yet. This is episode 1. So
keep it
thanks
cozy
to Drew.
in the loft.
Thanks to Drew. Thanks to Francisco. And catch you next time, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Bye. Bye.